Today we're going to break down a conflict that didn't just redraw the map of a region, but actually shifted the entire global axis of power. This is the story of the 2026 Iran War. Let's get right into it.
Years ago, that question was famously asked about the war in Iraq. It's a simple question, right? But it's so heavy. It's a soldier asking for a clear goal, an endgame. But in 2026, it wasn't just a soldier's question anymore. It became the entire world's question. And that's exactly what we're going to explore here. We're going to follow the dominoes as they fell, from the very first spark of the conflict to the economic tsunami that hit every single one of us, and finally, to the rise of a brand new world order that grew out of the chaos.
So how did this all kick off? Well, it wasn't a slow burn. It wasn't a diplomatic negotiation that failed. Nope. It began with a sudden, massive, overwhelming display of military force.
On that Friday, the world basically woke up to headlines about Operation Epic Fury. And let me be clear, this was not a gradual escalation. This was a coordinated, all-out aerial attack designed to, decapitate Iran's leadership and cripple its entire military in one single blow. The target list was, it was comprehensive. They went after everything. We're talking naval bases, missile factories, you name it. But the number one target, the most critical piece of the puzzle, was the leadership. And the strikes actually succeeded in killing Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. Just like that, a massive power vacuum was created right at the very heart of the regime. Now, an explosion of this size, it doesn't just happen out of the blue, right? It needs fuel. And in this case, the tinderbox had been filling up with bad blood and hostility for more than 70 years.
This timeline really gives you the highlights of a long, very bitter history. From that 1953 coup to the Iranian Revolution in '79, the bad blood just became baked in. More recently, you had direct clashes like the 12-Day War becoming more and more common. But look at that last point. This is the detail that's just wild. Just days before Operation Epic Fury, diplomats were saying a historic nuclear deal was within reach. The whiplash between almost peace and all-out war, it just shows you how incredibly volatile the whole situation really was.
So the very first consequence of this war wasn't military at all. It was economic, and it was felt instantly, not in Tehran or Washington, but at gas pumps and grocery stores thousands of miles away.
20%. Just think about that number for a second. That is how much of the world's entire daily oil supply sails through one single narrow choke point, the Strait of Hormuz.
Iran's response was simple, and it was brutally effective. They just shut it down. They used mines, anti-ship missiles, and turned the world's most critical energy highway into a complete no-go zone. The global flow of oil didn't just slow down, it came to a dead stop. And that wasn't some wild guess. That was Qatar's energy minister, a guy right at the center of the global energy trade, and he put it bluntly. He knew that stopping that much energy from flowing was like giving the global economy a heart attack.
And that shockwave, man, it hit everywhere. We all saw the images of those mile-long gas lines in Asia. Stock markets took a nosedive. The World Food Program started sounding the alarm, saying higher fuel costs mean higher food costs, which could push millions into starvation. All of a sudden, this regional war had a very direct, very real impact on everyone, everywhere.
Now, when you're facing a global economic meltdown, you'd think America's allies would circle the wagons, present a united front. What happened was the exact opposite. The alliance started to completely unravel.
And this right here perfectly captures the problem. President Trump demanded that NATO send warships to force the strait open, but the response from Germany's defense minister was a stunning public slapdown. And he wasn't just speaking for Germany, he was speaking for a huge chunk of Europe. This was way more than a political disagreement. It was a fundamental crack in the Western order. Key allies, even the UK, flatly refused to join the fight. An absolutely furious President Trump went public, calling them cowards. The Europeans then came back with their own plan, a separate naval force, but only if there was a truce first. For Washington, that was a total non-starter. The transatlantic alliance looked weaker than it had in decades. And while that old order was cracking apart, a new one was quietly being built. And this is where we see the biggest, most long-term consequence of the war really come into view.
You know what they say about vacuums in geopolitics, right? Someone always rushes in to fill them. With the United States distracted, overstretched, and pretty much alienated from its old friends, this massive strategic opening appeared, and a confident new power bloc was ready and waiting to step right through it.
And that brings us to the trilateral strategic pact. It was signed just a month before the war started, and it wasn't a formal military alliance like NATO. It was something different, more modern, more flexible, and in this situation, probably a lot more effective.
So what's really fascinating here is how practical this thing was. This wasn't just about diplomatic handshakes. We're talking about China feeding Iran real-time satellite intelligence. Russia and China were flying in spare parts for Iran's air defense systems. They were coordinating on cyber warfare. This was direct, tangible support that helped Iran withstand the U.S. campaign.
And they made zero secret about their ambitions. In their own joint statements, they called this pact a cornerstone of a new multipolar order. I mean, that's a direct challenge. It's a declaration that the era of a single dominant superpower is over.
And this slide right here shows the ultimate price for the United States. Every single aircraft carrier, every squadron of fighter jets sent to the Persian Gulf was a resource pulled away from the Indo-Pacific. The war didn't just bog America down, it gave China the one thing it needed most: time, and a distracted rival.
So, we end right back where we started. The question was never really just about how the fighting would stop. It was about what kind of world would be born from the ashes. The 2026 Iran war didn't just create a new Middle East, it pulled back the curtain on a new world order that was already waiting in the wings. And now, it's taken center stage.